Camera number 77 of 365, and it's the turn of a Canon EOS 600. A camera that requires a battery to operate. So to put the battery in the camera, we need to go to the grip and undo the screw there. And then once we've got that unscrewed, we can take the grip off. There we go. And the battery goes in the base of the unit. It's a 2CR5 battery. And we just simply slide it into the base, and then there's a little locking plastic lock there. Get a visual indicator, and then we can put the grip back on. Sorry about the noise. Very difficult being right-handed. There we go. And then we just simply screw the unit back up. Just while we're here, notice a little port here. I'm not sure whether the cover turns. Let's just undo that and take off video. Okay, so eventually getting the dial off, it seems to be that there is provision for a remote to be used, which is an electronic remote. I won't put that back on another time for now. So with the battery in, we now have a camera that can be used, and in its lock position it turns the camera off. Just rotating it to the right, we then have, we put it in program mode, so the camera basically takes on the persona of a point and shoot. Very nice point and shoot, but a point and shoot nonetheless. But we can change in this mode by pressing the mode button. We can cycle through a series of options, and the options correspond to a number. So we have standard program, a quick shot program, landscape, sports, portrait, close-up, and indoor. And by rotating, keeping that button pressed down and rotating the command dial, we can go through those various program modes. We've got multiple exposure as well, and exposure compensation button. Just turning it to the lock and then turning it onto the A, we now open up another series of options with the mode button. From program mode, we can also choose shutter priority, aperture priority, and depth mode, and also manual mode, where we can choose aperture and shutter via the dial. So turning to the other side, the back of the camera, we have this button, which I believe is a, let me just check that, I can't quite remember what that is now, I do beg your pardon. Oh yes, aperture button, that's right, yes, of course, in program mode we can shift the aperture by pressing that button. That's how it is, I remember that now. Remember reading that. And also it does turn a light on as well for the display. And then we have partial metering button as well. Looking at the door at the back here, we also, by undoing it, it should stay on, but unfortunately it's come off. There's a series of buttons. We have the mid-roll button, and then we have our autofocus mode, which if we keep that down and rotate, we can see it changes from AI servo to one shot. And then the blue button allows us to choose our release mode, single release, continuous release, or self-timer. And then the final button is a battery check button. If we press a combination of the buttons, I think it's the two buttons, that allows us to change our, let's see if I can show you that, very difficult online on the camera. Pressing the first two buttons allows us to change our film speed, and then also if we press all three, the first one and the third one, beg your pardon, that allows us to choose our auto exposure bracketing mode, which is included as well. There are a number of custom functions, too many to go through, but for me the most important one is the fact that I can tell the camera to, when it rewinds, which it will do automatically when it reaches the end of the film, please leave the leader of the film out, and it does indeed do that, which is great. So I think that's pretty much all the functions. It takes the EOS range of lenses. Oops, there is another button here, beg your pardon, and I will have to check the manual for that before I go any further. Right, having consulted the manual, we have on the top button depth of preview or preview button, and then the M button is the manual aperture button. So that's the button actually that we would use if we were in manual mode. So the dial presumably changes aperture when we're in that mode. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as camera number 77 of 365 goes, the Canon EOS 600.